so now I want to share a story with you before we start. When Jake sent me the invitation to come and speak in front of you guys, I was like a little bit panic. I said, like, who wants to hear an Israeli heavy accent in the middle of the day with such a limited vocabulary? I said, why? Thank you. But I said, okay, I will give it a shot. And I really didn't know on what to talk about and what to say to you guys in this very, very important event of Jewish young leaders of Turning Point USA. And so I didn't know what to answer. So I said, well, I will decide later. And I opened my laptop. And by coincidence, it was on Google Earth because my son had some homework on my computer and he left it. And I watched Google Earth for a second and I clicked in. And I looked at the world. And I said to myself, oh, you know what? We are living in not a very simple and not very peaceful place. Our planet is not a simple place to live in. It's quite frightening. I looked at Africa, for example, South Africa, Congo, Mongolia, Chad, Sudan, Iraq, Egypt. I'm talking about also countries in the Middle East, yes? Iraq, Iran, Syria. Not a very simple place. I went with my eyes more to the left, more to the east, to the far east. Mongolia, China. Above it, it's Russia, Ukraine. Billions of people around the world are suffering. Billions of people around the world are suffering. Minorities are getting persecuted. Women are getting killed of suspicion of adultery for the honor of the family. Gay people get the death penalty. Women are, in Iran are getting beaten and getting shot for not going with the hijab, with the veil on them. Not a very simple place. Look at what is going on with Russia. Millions of refugees, orphans. And I felt like for a second like fortunate to live in Israel, in a place that provides more human rights and more civil rights than any other country in this planet that is now in front of my eyes. And then I was like, but if you listen to the international institutions, if you listen to the media, international media, if you're looking at campuses around the world, you can think that the world looks like that. This funny, small country, less than 10 million of people, a little bit smaller than New Jersey, is the most condemned country in the world. Take, for example, the human consul of the United Nations. Every year, year after year, Israel is condemned more than Iran, Pakistan, Russia, China, North Korea together. All those countries that with hell people live in. But Israel is the most hated country on the planet. How can it be? Isn't it absurd, this twisted reality? Israel, that again, we are talking about high-tech state. Israel, when you think about its inventions, yes, solar panels, irrigation systems, Mobileye, who save every day thousands of people from car accidents, those irrigation systems that provide people in Africa food, nanotechnology. But Israel is the most hated country in the world. How can it be? And then I ask myself, maybe it's because of this constant resistance to Israel, this anti-Semitism, profound hatred, obsessiveness to the Jews. Is that the reason that the world looked like that? The photo, by the way, that I'm showing here, it's a famous meeting between Hitler and Hajj Amin al-Husseini in 1941. He was the Mufti of Jerusalem. He was a Nazi himself. He established the Muslim units of volunteers that went with the Nazi, belonged to the SS, Waffen SS, killed Jews, and they were Nazis. And is that the reason that the world looked like that? Because this Nazism, craziness, obsessiveness against the Jews, they just continue to the Jewish state, and because of that the world looked like that? I don't know. Because in Hebrew we say, Im en lechem en Torah. If there is no bread, no Torah. Maybe someone is benefit out of it. And then I reminded myself, who benefit out of this obsessiveness? Because hatred enough is not convincing. And then I said to myself, you know what? Maybe it's not this. Maybe it's the Israeli conflict, Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the bloodshed in Israel. And then I said, no, it cannot be. Because when you look at the world, and the world is in front of me, you see horrible things that are around the world. And the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, when you compare it to things that are happening in the world, you say, well, it's not that worse. Not for the Israelis, not for the Palestinians, in every objective measure. So it's not that also. So then I started to think about the people who benefit money out of the conflict and need money, and need the conflict to make their money. And I thought, of course, about UNRWA. I don't know if you're familiar with UNRWA, that is the Palestinian Refugee Agency. Think about it. All over the world, all the places that you see, all over the world, there is a refugee agency for all the people in the world. Tibetans, Kurdish, Iranians, Russians, Canadians, Japanese, you name it, they belong to one refugee agency. And only the Palestinians in the world, their agency was took outside from the general the agency of refugees, and this is UNRWA. And the definition of UNRWA is also different from the rest of the world. If you are a Palestinian refugee, and then your your privilege as a refugee is inherited, going from a father to a son, from father to a son, from father to a son. So when UNRWA was established in 1948, they counted 750,000 Palestinian refugees. Today, they are counting 7 million refugees. How can it be? Because it's going from a son to a son. Now, even if, let's say, a grandfather left Israel, Palestine, call it for a second, whatever you want, in 1948, and now he lives in Beverly Hills. His grandkid, lives in Beverly Hills. He has a great house. He has swimming pool and pool table and Mercedes in the back of his, in his parking yard, whatever. He's still counted as a refugee. And this agency, that its budget is more than $1 billion per year, okay, with more than 10,000 employees around the world, do you think they want the conflict to be solved? No, they need the money. And they need the refugees. So when the general agency of refugee that works with refugees all over the world try always to find solutions to the refugees. And when they get citizenship, no matter if it's in Canada, in the United States, in Sweden, in China, no matter what, then you're not a refugee anymore. But Palestinian refugees, it's for life. It's for eternity. So this is a very big and strong lobby that needs the Palestinian refugee problem to continue always. But what is $1 billion per year when you think about the warlords, the terror barons? Did you know that, for example, one of the main leaders of Hamas, Khaled Mashal, his estimate wealth is $2 billion. Mahmoud Abbas and his two sons together, their estimate wealth is close to $500 million. Those people need terror, they need the conflict because they make money out of it. Think about the opium fields that Hezbollah grows in Lebanon and Syria. Think about the $345 million that go every year to terrorists who killed Jews, pay for slay. If you are an Arab guy and you kill one Jew, and you go to prison, then you will get 2,000 shekels per month for life from the Palestinian Authority. But if you slaughter the family and you got 30 years in prison, then your salary will be 12,000 shekels per month. So the Palestinians created the murders of the Jews. It's the Palestinian exit. It's worth to kill a Jew than to steal his car. And this money, by the way, when the barons are giving this money to the small terrorists, they take, of course, overhead to themselves. So people make money out of the bloodshed. They need money. They need the conflict because they benefit out of it. But then you ask yourself, how can it be? You know what, Matan? You probably, there is something in what you're saying. Yes, the world is so terrible. And a refugee agency only for Palestinians, yeah, it sounds weird. Why the Tibetans doesn't have their own agency? What is the difference? There is not an objective, any reason. So why? And then you say to yourself, okay, so who is framing it in a different story? And here comes in the propaganda NGOs, the propaganda movements, the BDS movement, the people who are going framing to the world this twisted lie. And think about it. First of all the anti-Zionist, anti-Jewish, anti-Israeli organizations, they get their money from foreign governments, but also from governments that are enemies of Israel. Saudi money, Kuwait money, Iraqi money, Syrian money, but also European government money goes to those organizations. And suddenly, you can understand that when people are going to campuses with their big budget and start to talk about Israel and bashing Israel, they're becoming stars. If you are a linguist professor, no one knows what is a linguist professor. It's boring. No one cares. What is it? What is linguist? Okay, you are English speakers. What is it? Talking about languages? What? But if you are Noam Chomsky, if you are starting to bash Israel all the time, then you are an international star. People are inviting you to speak in Harvard, to speak in Columbia University, to speak in Berkeley, to speak in Sweden, to speak in Brussels. You are a star. And there are many professors who understand that if they will defend the women's rights in Iraq, then no one will invite you anywhere because no one cares. And if you will defend the poor girls that were now beaten only because they didn't go with hijab, no one will care about you because no one cares. And if you want to make a Putin's apartheid week, no one will come, no one will join. You will not have a budget. And then a 12 years old, 9 years old, 5 years old kid hugging his sister in a bomb shelter in Ukraine, and Putin is like bombing Kiev, and he's like, why no one is talking about me? Because no one cares. They cares about Israel. They made bashing Israel the best business on campuses. So no one defend the real voices, the real tragedy, the real people who needs help. And instead of it, the BDS movement is talking only about Israel. A country that is a light to the nations. Compare Israel. Look, half of the planet is in front of you. Find me one country that is better than Israel, that provides more human rights and civil rights. Did you know that Israel is the only country in the Middle East and Africa that the Christian population is going up instead of down? Why is that? Why the Christians are leaving Iraq and Lebanon and Bethlehem? Why is that? Why everybody wants to go in Israel? Because Israel is safe haven. Israel is a fortress of light in a very dark area. So the problem with BDS is two, by the way. One is because they are obsessed with the Jews, this anti-Semitism craziness, and they benefit out of the conflict. And believe me, Noam Chomsky don't want peace in the Middle East. because he needs to benefit out of it. When those NGOs who are doing this apartheid week everywhere, they need the conflict. They're not trying to bring peace to the Middle East or to whatever. They don't. And for the meantime, they also blind the others, the good guys in the Western world, for talking about the real issues, about slavery, about women condition, about children condition around the world. Think about the refugee boats who swam down trying to cross from Africa to Europe. You didn't hear about it. Think about the Irish soldier that just this week was shot by Hezbollah in Lebanon. No one cares out of him. No one heard about him. Did you hear about him? No. But you heard about Israel because someone is benefit out of this twisted photo. And when you think about that, and you think about the people who defend Israel, and as the people in the panel before me talked also, when you defend Israel, it's not easy. It's not easy everywhere, but it's defending the light, and it's defending the truth, and it's defending the only place who provides so much goodness. It has its flaws, of course, but give me one country that doesn't have flaws. In Chicago, there are more shooting accidents than most of the places in the West. So what? Okay, things are not perfect. We need to fix the world. But tikkun olam, real tikkun olam, not a progressive, twisted thing. Tikkun olam is about fixing things. It's not about bashing Israel. Making the world better is not obsessiveness to eliminate the Jewish state and then to eliminate the rest. So if I have like a message to you guys, sometimes me also, I'm 40 years old, I'm doing a lot of lectures, I'm working a lot with students, and I also myself feel a lot of times alone. And I'm married, and I have 3 children, and I have a happy life. But sometimes when you fight the bad guys, you feel alone. And every one of you, I'm sure, he feels alone a lot of times. And he asks himself, why I'm doing it? So remind yourself all the time, you are doing it because this is a privilege, this is an honor to be a defender of the light, to be defender of the truth, to be defender of the good guys, and you fight the people who benefit out of the conflict, who benefit out of bloodshed. They're hypocrites. Hypocrites. You're talking about Israel. Are you not ashamed? What about the women in Iraq? What about the children who were slaughtered just now in Syria? What about them? What do you want from the only country in the Middle East and Africa and Asia together that provides more human rights than all the rest? So don't talk with me about the Jews. Talk with me about yourself. Don't be shy. Be brave. And never, don't you ever break down. Because we don't have other country and we don't have other values. We are soldiers for the truth, for the light. So it's about the turning point, USA, and it's about Israel. And you see also now, people also from within fight the core values of America. But believe me, follow the money, and you will see who fund the bad guys, who want the United States to go down. And continue to defend the good. So that's my speech. Thank you very much.